Okay, 1E. What do we see? We see squares that appear to be what would be considered concentric. Now, often concentric has to do with circles or curves, arcs, things like that. However, concentric meaning same center, eccentric meaning different centers. This looks to be about the same thickness or margin all the way around, so I'm going to consider that concentric. It appears that this tic-tac-toe or hatch or hashtag, whatever you want to call it, is symmetrical. And if we do a little bit of math, just kind of checking some things out, you know what? I'm not going to. Let's just go ahead and assume this thing here is, I'm not going to do the math at all. So let's go ahead and just simply play with what we have, this 4.8, 4.8. Then we have some dimensions on the inside. Now, you are allowed to assume that this line and this line are aligned, collinear. These three lines on each row are collinear. Same with the vertical ones, this horizontal. And you are correct, they are, especially when you're only given so many dimensions. It's saying, hey, you should assume and can assume that these lines here are the same distance as these two lines here. Same with these horizontally. So I'm going to start with this 4.8 in here and move it over here. Do a rectangle 4.8 comma 4.8, and what else do I know is true? I know down here the distance from the 4.8 square, in this case being square, is 0.4, and this one up here left to right is also 0.4. Now pay attention and be careful. This 0.4 here, and I know it's not great quality as far as the print, the 0.4 goes to this outside square. Now I'm calling it a square because I'm making an assumption, and you want to be careful doing this. This 0.4 here is from the hash brown, hashtag, tic-tac-toe to the inside square. Now all of a sudden, because I see things that are different here, this was square. This is now going to different parts of it. I know these two out here are not square. They are rectangular, but not square. 0.20, TYP. TYP stands for typical. Typical meaning everywhere. It applies everywhere unless told otherwise. Now, for mechanical drawings, typical is not commonly used. At least it's not taught to be commonly used. So you want to be careful using that. For construction industry, architecture, so on and so forth, typical is very typical. Sorry for that, but it's commonly used. So regardless, for the purposes here, we now know what that is. 0.2 is the thickness or distance apart from these two lines, these two lines, these two lines, and these two lines here. So again, knowing this 0.4 to the inside, let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to use the offset command, and I'm going to type 0.4 is what it's asking for, how far, and I'll click and click. Now notice it did the whole thing. That's because this is a polyline. This is one object, so it did a copy. It duplicated, but it set at a distance of 0.4 off. It is not just this horizontal line here bringing it out. It's the entire object, and the more you use offset, I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful command, very useful, very helpful. But regardless, for now, I know that this is the inside line, but up here on the right, that's the outside line. So you want to be careful here. Now, I might honestly, this could easily trying to keep these straight could cause some confusion. So I think what I'm going to do, just to I'm going to pull this off so I can see it on my other screen. I see horizontal is the inside line, and then the outside line is a 0.2 away. These verticals, this is the outside line. The inside one should be, sorry, the other one that is a 0.2 away should be on the inside here. Instead, I'm going to erase this just to make sure I'm not causing myself a lot of confusion. And again, expect this. It's very easy to take place. So instead, this polyline, now I'm not going to go back and do it with lines. I'll just explode it right here. Explode, or X right click, and all of a sudden now I have individual lines, all 4 of them. So now I use the offset command. It's already 0.4 because that was what I selected last, so it's now my default. Just right click, and this bottom one I'll go from here to here, and top one here to here. These are the inside of those 2 rectangles. This is the smaller one of the 2 outside rectangles. So I'll do 0.4 again. Now, by the way, the last command, even though I've hit escape a few times, the last command I did was offset. So per my settings, right click customization, I'm able to right click and I'm already back into offset. Remember, if there are no objects selected, right click means repeat last command. Okay, so 0.4, right click is good. Now this one, again, is the outside. Tell you what, before I do that, just so we keep it clear, let's go ahead and somewhat finish these. This is the inside of the 2 rectangles. I'm going to do right click again, or sorry, offset again, and instead this is a 0.2 distance. And this one goes farther to the outside. There. Now, if I do this, back to the 0.4, here and here, and then right click 0.2, this one comes back to the inside. This one comes back to the inside. Okay. So now this is another one. This is pretty nice. Multiple ways to close these. Multiple ways. I can grab their grips and pull them out. I can right click and encompass the ends and pull them out. I can real quickly just draw a rectangle I'm going to delete. EX for extend. This is the opposite of trim, which would be a drop down here. And I'll say I'm going to extend to here. I could have just right clicked and that way it selects anything. But now, right click to say what gets extended. I can select those, so on and so forth. Be careful, if you select those, then all of them. Now I can go back and trim these. Okay? But instead of doing that, I was undoing Control Z. Instead of doing that, this is one that I use all the time, especially when I'm drawing walls, a double line wall for like a floor plan or house plans. I'll use fillet or chamfer, either one here. Come on. Drop. Fillet or chamfer. Now, fillet is a curved corner. Chamfer is somewhat of an angled or beveled corner. Fillet's what I normally use because F right click is fillet. Now here's why, one reason I had you pull up your command line a few lines. Again, I said always look at your command line. Well, I see down here, undo, polyline, radius, trim, multiple. Great. I don't know what these are going to help me with right now. Well, it's not just right here. Pull these up because not only looking at your options, you also want to look at your current settings right here. Current settings are the mode is to trim. The radius is 0. Radius is 0. What does a circle look like that has a radius of 0? You should know or realize that looks like a point. Okay, fine. A fillet is a curved corner, as if I'm wanting to curve these corners. Curve it with an arc. Well, what does an arc look like with a radius equal to 0? Again, it looks like a point. And there is one right here. Now that's true. It's also not true. There is no arc there. Sure, that's correct. If there was and it had a radius of 0, that's exactly what it would look like. Basically, that means that it would look like there is no arc there at all. So in this case, my radius is 0. I am going to now, and if it was not, I apologize, I'm stuttering here. If the radius was something else, it's simple. You either click on here or just R right click, type in 0, which in my case it's already set there, so I'll just right click to accept. and then I click and click. Right click to repeat it, click and click, and these are sharp corners. Already extended, already trimmed. So it's kind of like this takes on those extra commands all in one. And this would help or work well with chamfer or chamfer as well. Now, one thing fillet doesn't do is I'm trying to click and drag such as a window selection. It's not allowing me to do that. So I have to select right on the object, and this is why I don't want my pick box, or like the aperture without the crosshair, I want it to be a little larger. Otherwise I have to go a little slower, be a little more precise with selecting these lines. Also, this is one that doesn't repeat or keep going on its own. You have to right click to repeat the command. So there we have it. We could have extended and trimmed. We could have grabbed the grips. We could have stretched. Stretch is a good one to know and understand. In this case, I used fillet command with a 0 radius and got pretty nice and quick. Took care of a few steps all at once. So, okay, what I have left is try to keep track of where you're at, because it's easy to get lost, especially a more complex drawing. This rectangle or square doesn't exist. This is the outer limits of my tic-tac-toe, crosshatch, pattern, pound sign, number sign, hashtag, whatever. So, okay, that's fine. Now, what do I know is true about those? Well, what I know is I have rectangles. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click here and here. But, well, I already have the dimensions, and I know they are a 0.2 thickness or width, so I didn't actually have to click on those corners. In this case, it's really not helping me, but so I'll do 0.2 comma, and in this case 4.8 tall. Because they're a polyline, I'm able to grab it out here. If they were individual lines, I'll go ahead and make them individual lines. I'd have to select each one of them, and now I'm getting, okay, which line do I want? In this case, kind of doesn't matter. You only want one of them. Now, I don't recommend doing that route, but just even if you did, you don't have to undo, you don't have to cancel and do it over. Understand there are still ways through it. So in this case, I use the blue window to select this horizontal line. Why? Because the blue window means only objects that are completely consumed within the window will be selected, as opposed to green. All I have to do is touch the end or cross an object and it's going to be selected. You see that it's lighting up or kind of getting a bold face there. I don't want that. Now if I go farther, you'll see this horizontal line totally light up also. I don't want that either. So I'm done selecting these. I'm just going to move. How far? Well, I know the width per the drawing from each of these sides, this being symmetrical. There is a dimension over here in this little rectangle from this line here over to the inside, or what would be the right side of the rectangle over here, is 1.4. Tell you what, I will go ahead and accidentally selected both of these vertical lines. Don't want to do that. Just select one of them. Horizontal, horizontal. I'll go ahead and put this corner over here. Now, I'm going to move it a total of 1.4. Now, if this line was gone, that means I accidentally selected both and moved them both over, but I didn't, so I was careful not to do that. So I now have this. If I want, this is something we could do, is I know it's also 4.8 wide. 4.8 comma 0.2, and I'll leave that as a polyline. Move, and I'll go from here straight down a distance of 1.4. Now what's nice is I can just mirror these. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these, If I didn't have these here to use those midpoints to mirror this, or these here, then I wouldn't have wanted to have deleted those. I could have used their midpoints and then deleted them. Either way is fine. So in this case, this is mirrored from here to here, and this is mirrored from here to here. Now notice what's going on here. A couple things. One, erase source objects. If I say yes, it erases. I didn't want a mirror image. I wanted this over here instead. So you can just quickly do it there. Another thing was it only mirrored the vertical lines. Why? Well, it's because that's all I selected. This is the one that I exploded a minute ago, which not a big deal. So just select them all. Or I could have then mirrored these two, just the horizontal also, and put them over there. And again, a lot of different ways. Now, am I done? No. Always do a self-evaluation. Double check. Now, I'm not having you do the dimensions. You can if you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. Dimensions are kind of a beast in themselves, or an animal all their own. We'll definitely get into that wholeheartedly at another time. But if you want to go ahead and throw them on there, that way you can do a double check. Wonderful. I'm leaving them off because right now I'm just wanting the objects. But also do a double check and verify, is this what it looks like in the pages or in the book or in the assignment? And no, I've failed to trim these. So you could do a fillet. However, if I do a fillet with, and I see that this is 0 radius, well, if I'm wanting this trimmed, okay, I'll fillet this. Well, that got rid of the entire rest of the object, so maybe not a good idea. At this time, I'm thinking trim. I'm going to right click. That means everything is a trimming object. And there. And go. Notice I'm inside. You got to be careful. If need be, just zoom in a little farther. Make sure this is an area where you don't want your pick box too large, because then you definitely have to zoom in farther, zoom in and out, so on and so forth. That looks like that is correct and complete. Now again, do not feel that or be surprised if what's in the book does look a little bit different. It looks like what's in the book is actually drawn a little bit incorrectly. Looks like there's more space here and definitely here where they did stretch it over to put a dimension in there. You're fine if this is what you have. So don't rely wholeheartedly on the book or the assignment itself. Unless, now you do need to at least look at it and determine, is the information there? Is there something I missed? Is there something I did wrong that I failed to look at? Having this on paper, it's pretty nice. You're able to scratch off or mark off dimensions or lines or objects you've already created or used. That makes it a lot easier to find out after you've used them which ones are left. If you don't see information there, if you get rid of all of them that you have used, sometimes there's only 1, 2, or 3 left over, which then turns on that light bulb and allows you to understand, okay, that's how I'm going to do it. That's where it's at, so on and so forth. I ask you, never ever scratch it off. Never ever mark it out. Because later on, you and a coworker, you and the customer, you and your boss, there's going to be an argument, there's going to be a discussion, someone made a mistake. If yours is scratched off, it's going to be a lot harder to see. I highly recommend, and I also get this from business owners, use a highlighter. That way you can still see through it, but it's real quick and easy to see which ones you've marked off and which ones are remaining. Okay, so for this video, that is, we're good. 20 minutes. Need to go faster.